Welcome to Risky Bible Study. Usually I'm talking about a biblical passage and trying to understand the author's original intention in writing that passage, but today is different. Today we're looking at my deconversion story. Now, what do I mean by that? I grew up in the Christian church. More than that, I had a powerful conversion experience. I was led Bible studies in the church. I was a preacher. I spent much of my life preparing to be a missionary and to try to save people's souls. I was very serious about my religious faith and about sharing it with others. Whereas today, I'm not Christian, I don't go to church, and I don't believe that the Bible is an authority. I'm very, very different. And so that's what I mean by deconversion. Now, the Bible has a number of ways of modeling or understanding how people leave biblical religion. Jesus shared a few parables, the parable of the lost sheep, where the sheep knows it's lost, but it doesn't know how to find its way back. The shepherd, representing Jesus or Jesus' followers, has to go find the sheep and bring him back into the fold or to safety. Does that parable describe me? Another parable is the parable of the prodigal son. The prodigal son knows he's lost. The prodigal son knows that he's not in the fold, in the church. But he doesn't come back for a long time because he's afraid he won't be accepted. Finally, he does come back and he's welcomed back into the fold, back into his father's house. Does that parable describe me? Finally, there is some pretty scary passages in the Bible about the unpardonable sin or the sin against the Holy Spirit. Basically, the person who knew the truth and embraced it and then turns their back on it afterwards, they can't be saved. They're beyond salvation. That's pretty scary. Does that describe me? What I'm going to do is I'm going to share my story and let you decide. You can figure out how to judge my experience after I've shared my conversion and then deconversion experience with you. Now, when I first started to leave and then left the church, I was pretty combative and I would get into arguments with people about things like inconsistencies in the Bible or science and evolution versus the Bible. I was looking for ways to point out how my old faith, my old religion was wrong, and I was now right. And while I do believe that I'm currently in a more factually correct state of mind, I do believe in science and evolution, and I believe the Bible is factually incorrect. I have come to the conclusion that I actually didn't leave the church because of those reasons. Honestly, I don't think most people make a major worldview change based on logic, based on a rational argument. I think most people make a huge worldview change based on a feeling that starts deep inside and then grows, and then our subconscious looks for ways to rationalize, to justify how we feel. And honestly, I'm in the same boat. What caused me to leave the church? Well, it was an event that made a feeling start to grow inside of me. Specifically, what that event did was it turned my faith and love for God into a fear that God actually wasn't good. That fear turned into doubt about God's goodness and even his existence. And that turned into disbelief, where I am today. I think that's how most people make big changes in their life. It's not logic, it's not rationality, it's feelings. We have these feelings, and those feelings push us in one direction or another, and then our subconscious justifies how we feel. And so we end up in a new place. And so, well, I used to argue with people about all these problems with religion. Today, I honestly, I'm where I am because of fate. I don't know. Something happened. And again, I'm going to share that story with you, and then I'll let you draw your own conclusions. I want this to be a journey that we can go on together. If you have questions, feel free to ask them. I really am open to any sort of questions or even criticisms. Was I never converted at all? Hey, make the argument. Was I just stuck in the wrong religion? Maybe if I'd been in the right religion, maybe a different Christian church, or maybe not Christianity at all. Maybe there's a different religion that embraces, has a more comprehensive worldview. Sure, let me know in the comments below. But moving forward from here, I think the next step is for you to first understand my conversion story. Before you can understand the deconversion, you need to understand my conversion. I grew up in a religious family. We attended church every week and prayer meeting in the middle of the week. My parents were very active in the church. My father would preach. My mother was very active in leading Bible studies, doing the music for the church. So that was where I grew up, in a very religious family. Now, I wouldn't describe myself as having been born very religious. I was just a normal kid who liked doing normal kid things. But I remember when I received a Bible, and my mom gave me this Bible and said, "Hey, why don't you read it a little bit each day?" And so I did that. I started reading a little bit of the Bible every day. I was just a normal kid, thought some of the parts of the Bible were weird, enjoyed some of the stories I read, but it was just like reading a storybook to me. I was just reading this book a little bit each day. But as I made my way through, eventually I got to the book of Daniel, and Daniel has all of these weird prophecies and other things in it. I was having a hard time understanding it, and so I asked my parents, and they suggested a little Bible commentary. So I got this Bible commentary and read the Bible side by side, the book of Daniel specifically, side by side with this commentary. It was just blowing me away how thousands of years before the event, God had given prophecies to his people about what would happen in the future. I was reading this stuff and it was amazing to me. I was like, wow, this is the real deal. And I started to have this growing conviction that the Bible was true and that Christianity was true. And that conviction led me to request baptism. And so I was baptized into my church, and I believed that this stuff was right. Now, I would describe that experience as an intellectual change. Intellectually, I had decided that Christianity and the Bible was true. But that's not where I trace my conversion. You see, as I continued to read through the Bible, I eventually got to the life of Jesus. And as I was studying the life of Jesus and truly trying to understand it, this conviction started to grow that I was a sinner. This was different than just being intellectually in agreement with the Bible, agreeing that the Bible was true, agreeing that Christianity was true. I was starting to see myself as a sinner, as a dirty person. And as I realized this, I was studying the life of Jesus and feeling more and more like a sinner. I tried to be good. I tried to live a better life. I'd try to find things in my life that were wrong and correct those. And something very specific was movies. I loved watching movies, specifically action movies. But this conviction started growing that these action movies were worldly, that they were sinful. How could I, as a Christian who loved Jesus, enjoy watching people hurt each other? How could I be entertained by violence when God's call to us is to preach a message of salvation for every human and a message of peace? There's no place for being entertained by violence. And that's how I felt. And so I tried to stop watching these movies, but then I felt addicted because I would pull away from them and then I'd fall back into sin and watch some more. And then I'd pull away from them and then I'd fall back into sin and watch some more. And this went on for a while. And then finally one evening, I remember I knelt down and I prayed. I said, Lord, I can't do this. I am not capable of overcoming sin on my own, and I need you. And that was the moment. That's the moment where I traced my conversion, because that's where I just gave myself completely to God. And I said, hey, look, I can't do this on my own. I'm sold under sin, as Paul said. And it was at that point. It was at that point that I gained the victory over my sin. And after that, I just didn't have an attraction to that entertainment anymore. I remember I went to my parents, I told them, hey, I'm not going to watch movies anymore. If you guys want to end our cable subscription, I would love that as well. But after that, like I came clean and I had the victory because I gave myself completely to Jesus. And so my move into the church was like these two phases. Intellectually, I started agreeing that the Bible was true. And then I had this experience of realizing I was a sinner and needing the power of Jesus to bring victory in my life. After my conversion, my focus really narrowed. I didn't want to waste any time on frivolous, worldly activities. I spent all of my time doing things I thought were what God would want me to do in preparation for Jesus' soon coming, which the Bible prophesied. So I studied the Bible and I tried to prepare myself to be a missionary, and I tried to share the message with others. This was when I was about 11, 12, 13, before I went to high school. And you can imagine I was a pretty intense, serious kid. For me, it was very lonely. I spent a lot of that time wanting to be able to share how I felt about the truth, about religion, about the Bible, about Jesus, and not feeling like I could share how I felt with anyone. Like I had to be strong, I had to be a missionary. I couldn't be vulnerable with anyone because I didn't feel like anyone understood what I did. So that was a pretty hard time in my life. On the one hand, I felt like I was genuinely connected to Jesus. I talked to him every day, and I had had this conversion experience. On the other hand, I felt like there was nobody I could relate to. And that was tough. That was really tough on me as a kid. And that kind of stuck with me through high school to a certain extent. Now, I partially blame Protestant religion, specifically evangelicalism, on this. I feel like evangelical faith is like COVID. Most people catch it and they're fine. They'll have a cough, they'll have a cold, they'll be feeling a little bad for 2 weeks, but then they're okay. But there's a few people who catch COVID who take it really hard and they get put into the ICU, they have to be intubated, sometimes they die. It's pretty bad for them. There's a significant minority who are really hurt by it. And I feel like evangelicalism is similar, where most people who have evangelical faith do just fine. They can enjoy life. They'll have a beer with their friends. They'll go to the football game. They'll watch a movie. They're okay. They're still living life to the fullest. But then there's a significant minority of people, when evangelicalism enters into their life, it pushes them into the deep end. It makes them go extreme. I was one of those, and I resent that. I resent the fact that so much of my childhood and youth was lost on this extremism that didn't get me ahead in life at all, didn't help me at all. And to this day, I struggle to know how I should relate to evangelicalism. Because on the one hand, I think it does hurt a significant minority. On the other hand, I think the majority are fine. It doesn't hurt them, it doesn't make their life worse. They're able to live a full, meaningful life. And so what do I do about that? Is evangelicalism something I should fight because it hurt me? Or is it something I should just recognize as this force that is fine for most people? Probably this channel that I've developed, Risky Bible Study, is my answer to that. My hope is not to undermine evangelical faith for most people out there. Instead, my hope is to help those few people who kind of find themselves in a similar situation as I had, getting pushed off the deep end. I'm hoping to find those people and offer them an alternative. I don't know if this is the best avenue to do it, but I'm trying, because I don't want other people to go through what I went through. So that's all for today. Stay tuned for the next video where I will dig into my experience in high school and college, and then get into the event that kind of started my deconversion experience. So I'll be sharing that in the next video as well. I hope you can appreciate this content. Please subscribe to my channel if you'd like more of this, and leave comments and questions that you have. I'm a really open person. Say what you want. I will probably not get offended if you ask me a direct question about my deconversion experience. So I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching.